Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Adele Ashley. I share everything from reviews about books, daily vlogs, weekly vlogs, life in Toronto, and bullet journaling. If you've been around for a bit, you know that bullet journaling is something that I do every single month. Instead of having like a traditional agenda, I use my bullet journal pretty much like every day. It's never too far from me or in my bag or on my way somewhere. But for September, I decided to switch things up a little bit. I feel like I've been in a bit of a rut when it comes to my weeklies specifically, and I know like we kind of went through this a little bit a few months ago in the first half of the year, but I don't know. I felt like I wanted to do something different. And I think September kind of achieves that. It starts from essentially it started from my cover page and goes all the way through to like my weeklies and everything else. Kind of a big thing here is I decided to kind of go with like a back to school, start of the new year theme. So you are seeing lots of that kind of like that brown paper going in. That's actually just like an envelope that I got from a store. They just kind of like put their products in these paper bags kind of. So I have so many of them sitting around, so I just use those to put it in, and I created a bit of a Dutch door here. So as you can see, I covered one page entirely in it, the paper, and then cut a little bit off, and then I added my second little section in there with some ripped paper on the side. So when it's closed, it looks like one kind of like clear sheet of paper. For my September, I'm just using stamps to kind of like put the date on there. And I swear, every time I use stamps or anything like that, I am so worried that I'm going to lose my ability to spell like really simple tasks in really simple words. But yeah, so I did that, and when you open it up, you get kind of like that ripped page on one side, and then you have like that half, or like I guess maybe 3/4 page on the other side. So for here, I'm just putting in my monthly calendar. I am still including like my 3 things I do every week, my focus, and next month spreads in there, because I just think that they're really important to kind of have in general. So yeah, I essentially just made kind of like a calendar in there. I did mess up the calendar a little bit, I won't lie. September only has like 31 days in it, and I accidentally on the left hand side there, you can see how I actually did the box all the way down. Yeah, so that was a little bit of an error on my part, but it's okay. We just made it work. Originally, I actually was not going to do the 3 things this month section, but I was like, guess it's going in now, in that little section that I am missing there. And then you can see how I am using a gray moutliner just to create kind of like this grid pattern across the page. I am really proud of it because I am actually trying to challenge myself to draw more lines freehand this year. And it's funny, I love how this page ended up turning out with like the grid and the kind of like all the brown colors and everything else. I absolutely love it. I did not continue the grid later on in the spread just because I got so fed up of drawing those lines. But for a cover page, it's kind of one of my favorites so far in this journal. And then I also used some of the leftover like rub on transfer stickers that I had from my book journal setup way back in January at the top and bottom of this page, just to kind of add a little bit of like visual interest to the page. It does kind of go along with the whole back to school theme or school or stationery, which I really was going for here. And then I admittedly did something a little bit different with this setup. I don't usually have like a mood spread in my journals. Habits is totally normal for me. But I decided to turn this into like a 2-page spread. Most recently, I've been doing like a little Dutch door for my habits, which I've been loving, but again, trying to switch it up. And I decided to add in mood. I did add mood in for August, and it's been going well so far. It's something that I'm really trying to like get a beat on and kind of like see what's going on. So I'm tracking it in my bullet journal, but I'm also kind of tracking it in a journal that you guys don't see as well. Just to kind of like figure out what, if there's something that's like a trigger to me that's causing me to feel down or certain ways on specific days, so that I can make a change if needed. But essentially, I am putting the two of them on the same page. As you can see, I'm creating like two separate boxes for them. The one at the top is for all of my habits. For this month, I'm tracking 6 to 8. There's some that I'm not going to let you guys see there for obvious reasons. They're just personal. And then I have my mood tracker at the bottom there, and I essentially am just going to use like different bars for each month, for each day, to specify like where I am falling on that scale. And I didn't do a full calendar for habits this month. Usually I do like mini calendars and then just kind of like circle or color in where it is. I did opt for this like 1 to 30 across the page, and I'm just going to put a dot in the that corresponds to each one, like when I hit it. So if I worked out on the 5th of September, for example, I'm going to put a dot in that corresponding box for it. So it's kind of going to be like a grid, and then you can see that transfer sticker coming back in there as well, just to kind of round it out. From there, I jumped into my content spread. So this one again is a little bit different than how I normally do it. For the past few months, I've been doing like kind of, I wouldn't call them elaborate, but I have been like separating out my create page into like what things specifically are, like what platform or what area I'm looking to create in. And I opted this month to go back to just like leaving it as a blank page. I think it partly is just that I did so much with the first few pages that when I got to my content page, I actually really wanted something simple. I didn't really want to put a lot of like paper in it. I didn't really want stickers or anything like that. I kind of just wanted like a blank page that I could create with. So bringing back those stamps just for my title for content and create across the top. I also use the stamps to kind of like specify the different days of the week, as you can see there. So like Monday through Sunday. One thing with the stamps is I love how like almost difficult it is to get them to go in a straight line, or to make sure that you're only getting the letter stamped and stuff like that. I love the look of like that little corner by the E where you can see a little bit of the ink from the stamp is still there, or like a little dot on the side. It's a little bit chunky in areas. I just like how like imperfect it kind of is. It almost makes it perfect in my mind. And then under my calendar, I essentially just created another one of my boxes with divided into 3 columns so that I could specify whether or not I could track like what I posted on specific days in YouTube, Instagram, and podcast. I didn't put my color grid in there. If you've seen previous videos, you know that I usually like track what I posted on each day based on a color. I didn't include it in there. I might add it. I don't know. But yeah, that essentially was my content and create spread. And then after that, I started getting into my weeklies. I actually got into my memory spread. So this is something that I actually added in first in July. I just created like a really simple page that I just called like behind the picture. And essentially if I took a picture of something while I was out, I would post it. I would like print out a picture of it for a couple of them and write like what happened and the date and a memory behind it. And I actually really enjoyed doing it. So even though I do have my year in pictures where I have like 12 pictures or 24 pictures over the course of the year that I save and write a little bit note about it for the month, I also really, really liked kind of tracking on a more kind of like monthly basis the things that stood out to me or memories, because it's all about like romanticizing those little moments. It's something that might not be super big in the grand scheme of the month, but in that moment I felt good, or it's something that I want to remember, or something that I enjoyed. So definitely didn't include it in my August spread. I had set that up at the beginning of July and filmed everything for it, and hadn't really like tried out the July memory spread yet, and realized that I actually really wanted to add one in for September. So it's back, and it's probably going to come back and continue to be there. So I kept it pretty simple. You could see kind of like that book paper into the kind of like that envelope paper, that paper, brown paper on the side there. I just created a box at the top to say September memories, like keeping it really, really simple here. And then at the bottom, I have these 3 little boxes where I could track. I also want to track like media and stuff that I consumed during the month. So September memories on the left hand side, and then I have a section for shows, movies, and books that I may have read throughout the month of September. And I'm kind of really excited to see how like this works. I do have like my tracker at the front of my book, which you saw in my like July to December setup video, as well as I guess my January to June setup as well, where I have like that page of things to check out with shows and restaurants and everything else. But I thought it would be nice to kind of track it for the month as well, like things that I watched, and then just adding in some more of those transfer stickers there. As soon as I saw these two, I was like, oh, this is it. It's a Polaroid picture and a camera and like a portfolio, and that's exactly what I use for a lot of my pictures and stuff in my book. And now we're getting into the weeklies. So when I say that I wanted to do something different, I feel like I accomplished it with this month. Essentially, it's a whole bunch of Dutch doors. It did take me a little bit of time to figure out and, just be sure that I knew what I was doing before I started cutting pages. I am slightly traumatized, admittedly, from August when I cut that page by mistake when I was trying to create a Dutch door and I cut through like 3 pages of paper. But yeah, essentially I added in my paper again on the side, ripped it a little bit, the usual, and then use the stamps to kind of like create a cover page again. So I'm putting September back in there. So I just stamped the word September across the top. I created a box on the kind of like the right hand side of that page for a little mini calendar, because I do like being able to see a calendar when I am doing my weekly spread, like throughout the month. I like knowing kind of like where we're falling in the week and what day is which. And because I knew that I was not going to be using a calendar on my individually weekly spreads, like, for example, like September 2nd to 8th, I knew was not going to have a calendar in there. I really wanted to make sure that there was one that I could refer back to rather easily while I was like kind of in the depths of my weekly spreads. So and you'll kind of understand what I mean as I get a little bit more into setting it up. But a lot of the elements that you're used to seeing in my weeklies, where it's kind of like one week has everything from like notes and create and do this and do that, is all getting really condensed down into like one page, kind of, if that makes sense. So my notes section is underneath that calendar there. That's actually my notes section for the entire 4 weeks that I'm creating weeklies for. I'm also noticing that I'm not always using my notes section in my book. I kind of use it on like an as needed basis. So a lot of weeks there's nothing written there, and then there'll be a week where a whole bunch of stuff is written. And I also don't have a brain dump, as you've noticed in this spread, and it's because my brain dump spread actually doesn't get used very often. I tend to use it more if there's something that I want to jot down, what I want to pay attention to, and like stuff like that. It's not my actual it's not a spread that I use a lot, but it's a spread that I will probably always use, if that makes sense. So then I am just on the right hand page here. I am creating just this is definitely going to be a Dutch door, so just kind of like a cover page, I guess, for my weeklies, and just let us strive to be better in September. I have a couple more of those transfer stickers there, kind of reminding me of that whole like back to school and everything else vibe. And then here you can just see me like testing out my different mild liners to figure out which colors I wanted to use. I am making tabs kind of in this, and I knew that I wanted to have each tab be a different color, but I just wanted to make sure that they kind of looked good together, if that makes sense. And honestly, I can't tell you how many times I actually double checked to make sure that I was not cutting more than one page as I was doing this. The trauma from last month, guys. Like, I was unwell cutting through many pages, and I've always said Dutch doors are so terrifying for me. I'm worried about cutting the page behind it, which I've done. I'm worried about accidentally like cutting the book apart as I go through that crease. And, I did that like 5-6 times in this spread. So, yay me, we did nothing. It was good. It worked out perfectly well as we were setting this up. But essentially, I have my cover page, and then I am going into my weeklies, and each of them is going to be kind of like that small page that you see there. I think it really only was like 26, I think, is how many like spaces I used for it, for each one. And then one other thing I challenged myself to is to make all my weeklies different, which is not something that I've done before. Usually I just kind of create a weekly and just kind of run with it, and it's the same thing, rinse and repeat for each week, each page. But here I really was like, you know what, we're going to try and do something different. We're going to do a different weekly for every single page. It's going to, I really only had to do 4 in all honesty, but my first one is just this really basic, like kind of like lines across the page. And like I said, I'm only having the week be in here. So, I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday is going in that double box at the bottom there, just so I can plan everything out. I'm going to try writing like tasks and stuff there as well, instead of having a separate task list, because obviously I don't have any space for those each week, and just kind of like streamline things a little bit more better instead of kind of like an ongoing to-do list for the week. And I'm kind of interested to see how it works out. Like I said, I am doing different weekly spreads for each week as well, like different kind of like formats and setups of it. So I think for this month, I'm really just into like experimenting and seeing how I could do it different. I know I had a month, I think it was April or March, where my setup, I absolutely hated how I had my calendar or like my day-to-day tasks written, and I just kind of had to ride with it for the months. So I figured for September, like I said, doing a whole bunch of different setups for it or variations of it to see kind of like which ones I like. And because it changes each week, I'm not like stuck with something that I just absolutely hate for a full 4 or 5 weeks. But we'll see kind of how it all plays out. I do really like how these tabs work, how it's a little bit of like a book was kind of like my idea. But yeah, essentially just different tabs, different setups for each week of the month. And then you can see, essentially I wanted to make a back page to kind of like round it all out, because the weeklies, all those little Dutch doors are sitting there in the middle. And I wanted to make sure that the page that's like 5 pages before, that you see with the calendar in September across the top, was also a very cohesive spread into the last page of kind of like my weekly booklet, or the folder, if you want to call it that. So I actually used some more of my kind of like scrap book paper. I don't know if you guys can actually tell, but the one that I'm using on this page is actually from like a Learn French textbook, I guess you could call it, like one of those old school ones that like we definitely had when I was going to school. With like the lessons. I think this one is about like someone driving somewhere or something like that. And I kind of love that it says like leçon at the bottom of the page. Like it very definitely is like, this is a lesson. And then earlier in the spread, the pages that I'm using actually are from like a Spanish, I believe it is, to English dictionary. So you're seeing like the definition of all these words throughout. And I was like, when I saw it, I was like, this is perfect for back to school-ish, kind of like September, New Year learning spread. because you know I always associate learning with the beginning of September and kind of like a new year. It's like mini new year after so many years of school. But yeah, so essentially, I really wanted the two of them to line up. As you can see, like when I have it open, it's kind of like one cohesive unit. And I'm probably just going to add some quotes or something on the back 2 pages there. And yeah, essentially just flipping through my entire spread, I ended up really, really liking this spread. I love how it came out. I love kind of like how simple it is, but it's still a little bit like inventive in elements. And then those transfer stickers kind of, I feel like they made the entire thing. And then, like I said, really excited to see how this weekly spread plays out over the course of the month, because it is something a little bit different for me. But like always, you can always subscribe to my channel. Like I said, I talk about books, bullet journaling, daily life in Toronto. Feel free to like or comment below. I would love to hear from you guys about what you are looking forward to in September, how you are setting up your bullet journals, or kind of where you're drawing inspiration from. And just remember, the happiest people romanticize their life. Until next time, have a great day.